Learn to build your own typing game project using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So let's look at the demo for this project. The main logic is about WPM. What does it mean? WPM stands for words per minute, and that is a measure of typing speed. It indicates how many words a person can type in 1 minute, and this is commonly used to assess typing proficiency. At the moment, we have 0 for the speed, and then the accuracy is 100, which means that before the user will type, we assume that the user is starting with 100% accuracy. As the user type and the person gets some words incorrect, then the accuracy will be decreasing. So let's get into it. So if I type, as you can see, the color has changed to green, meaning that everything is correct. And if I hit space and type, which is this, and then if I mistakenly type this, as you can see, we got an error, meaning that this is incorrect and my accuracy has been decreased. Make use of, you saw the error, and then if I type dreams, and then I got one error, like that, and then comma here, if we have, so let me type something here. As you can see, I'm just demonstrating how this project is going to work, and then like that, and then pursue them, and then full stop. As you can see, it has restarted by providing me with a new letters to type, and this is what we are going to build. And before continuing this project, unless you are familiar with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and if you have taken my full stack course, we have covered them intensively. So the main logic is going to be on the JavaScript. The HTML and CSS will be provided for you. So let's get into it. And this is the template that we are going to begin with. We have the audio to play the sound, and this is the HTML. The JavaScript is empty, and this is a CSS. So this is a preview for that. Now let's see the HTML structure. Over here we have the H1, and then the P tag. Here will be the text the user needs to type, which is this, and then the input for the user to type, and then the div for the feedback, and then the speed, and then the accuracy, and lastly the message. And down here we have linked up our JavaScript. And for this, we used the IDs. So let's get back to the JavaScript. And to make sure that it has been connected, I'm going to log or alert something like hello. As you can see, hello has been displayed, meaning that the JavaScript has been connected. So let's begin. First of all, we are going to make sure that the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript are loaded before the user can interact with the application. Because of that, we're going to use what is called document.addEventListener. And then for this, we are going to use a method called DOM-CONTENT-LOADED. This means that we want to make sure the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript are loaded before we continue to use the application. Then the callback function as that. So in here, if I log something like completed, let me say file loaded, files loaded. Now let's see in the console. As you can see, we got files loaded. So it means that we can continue. Remember, I have zoomed out my application. Alright, so we are going to select the element. Alright, so let's begin with the text to type and typing input, speed, and accuracy. If you look here, we have the text to type, which is this one. This is where the text will be appeared for the user to type. at the moment we are having this static text, and then typing input, which is this, which represents this one over here, yeah, and then also the speed, which is this, and then the accuracy. We are going to select these guys. So over here is going to be as const text to type element, which is equal to document dot get element by ID, and the ID is text dash to type. And then let's have one for the typing input element, and then change this one to typing input. And then we would need the speed element. And then lastly is going to be the accuracy. Alright, so if we log these elements as an object, let's see, supposed to be inside the log. Alright, so let's see in the console. As you can see, we have it as an object. Perfect. Next step is that we have to provide the text that the user is going to type. So I will say const sample text, which is equal to an array. Let me say u. Let's begin with this basic text as me and when, and then let's say they. We are going to display this text randomly to the user, and that is, as soon as the application loads, we are going to display one of these texts, and then as soon as the user finishes typing, we are going to reload the application to have a new text. If you look at the final one, anytime I refresh, as you can see, the text changes. Let me provide a comment as text to display, and then down here we're gonna have some initial values. So here I will say let the current index. We are finding a way to display this text randomly. So here the current index by default it is 0, and then let the start time is equal to new date. Remember, we will use this one to calculate the WPM. Alright, and then let's have the errors so that we can display some messages. For example, changing the text color to red and also play sound. So here errors is equal to 0. Let's see the functions that we need. First function is going to be function to initialize or restart the game. And then we're going to have one to update the speed and accuracy feedback, and one function to check typed character, and one function to display messages to the user. And lastly, we're going to have event listener for typing input. So let's have the skeletons for these functions. Let's begin the initializer function. So here I will say function is initialize game. And this function, it will take in the input character. That is what the user is providing. And then the target character. And that is the words that is inside the array that has been displayed to the user. And then for the display message, is going to be as function display message. And this function will pass in the message that we want to display. And let's have one for the add event listener. For this one, we are going to target the typing input element, which is this. So it means that as soon as the user starts typing, we want to trigger or call some functions. So here, bring that and then add event listener, and here we are going to listen to an event called input, and then callback function as start. And as soon as the user type in, we want to update the feedback. And we have the function as update feedback. The reason why we are calling the function here is that we want to update the UI by displaying error or success when the user is typing. For example, if the user type H here inside the input field, it means that the user has typed the correct one. Therefore, we will change the color of this one to green. But in case the user type it wrong, we are going to play some error sound and also change the color of this. So it means that when a user interacts with this input field, this function here will be called. Let me show you. Let me pass in the event here, and then let's log the event, and let's see. Let me open the console. As soon as I type, for example, this, as you can see, the event has been fired. Likewise, in the update function here, let's log something like update function. And let's see, if I type, as you can see, the function has been called. Let's continue to implement the logic. Before we work with the update feedback function, let's finish up with the initializing of the game function. The purpose for this function is that it is going to update the UI with these letters or words. So it means that these values are going to be dynamic. So this function is going to display these words to the user. So it goes like this: const text is equal to the array, and that is the sample text. And if I say I want index 0, then let's log the text here. And to run this function, we are going to call it inside the DOM content loaded function. So down here, this is where we are going to start the game, and the function as initialize game. So as soon as I refresh the page, as you can see, I have the text being displayed here. If I want the second index, then here I'm going to change this one to 1, and I have that word being displayed here. But I want this one to be dynamic. So anytime the user refreshes, we want to update the text, and also as soon as the user finishes typing, we also want to change the text. So here we are going to use JavaScript method called math.floor and math.random. So here we're going to pass in math.floor. And this is a method that runs a number down to the nearest whole number, which ensures that it is a valid array index. So here we are going to pass in some random numbers, and we're going to use math.random. And then we multiply by the length of the array here. So here as sample text.length. Now let's see the magic. If I refresh it, as you can see, the texts are being updated as that. So instead of console logging it here, we are going to display it to the user. So here we are going to use this field called text to type element. So in here, let's remove this and then bring in text to type element, and let's use text content and then assign to text. Now let's see. As you can see, it has been updated. If I refresh, the texts are being updated. Next step is that we have to empty the input field. So here as typing input element dot value is equal to empty string, and let's update the current index to 0. Likewise, the start time is equal to current date as that, and then here errors, we're going to have 0, And also we have to update the user with this feedback. So I will say update function. So here as update feedback. Alright, so let's see. If I refresh, it is working. If I type something here, the function of update is also being called. So let's work on the updating. This is where we are going to calculate the number of words typed and the accuracy and the speed. So here we have to get the current time. So here as const current time is equal to new date. And then we want to get the elapsed time. And this is the function. It goes like this. We will take the current time minus the start time and then divided by 60,000. And this function converts the time from milliseconds to minutes. So here as that. So in here, we're gonna check if the elapsed time is less than or equal to 0. So in here, we are going to set the speed to 0 if the elapsed time is too small. So here as speed element dot text content is equal to 0. Else, we're going to calculate the words type as const words typed is equal to this, and that is the typing input element dot value. We want to get what the user is typing. So if I log the words typed, let's see if I type something like they. As you can see, it is being called over here. And that is line number 34, which is this one. So we are going to calculate the words type and the speed. And for this one, we're going to use regular expression as this. I'm going to write it first and then I will explain. So here, first of all, we're going to trim and use split. And then we're going to split by this regular expression as this. And let's use .length on that. The trim method here removes white space from both ends of a string. And this is useful to ensure that leading and trailing spaces are not counted as part of the text or as additional words. And next is split and this regular expression. This method splits the trimmed string into an array of substrings based on a regular expression. And for this regular expression, it means that it can split the text into words, separating by spaces, tabs, or any sequence of white space characters, and then .length to get the total number of elements in the array. Alright, so let's continue. Now that we have the number of words type here, we are going to calculate the speed. So here as const speed is equal to math.round and then pass in the words typed divided by elapsed time as that, and then we have to update the UI by using speed element dot text content, which is equal to the speed. So now let's see here. As you can see, we have the speed being 0. If I type, as you can see, this is my speed. Alright, everything is working fine for this logic. So now let's calculate the accuracy. Outside the else here, I will say calculate the accuracy. And it goes like this: const accuracy is equal to the current index. If it is less than 0, then we're gonna round by using math.round, and then we're gonna pass in the current. Then in here, we are going to perform some calculations. So bring in one more bracket and then one more bracket as that. So in here, we're going to bring in the current index minus errors, and then divided by the current index, and then we multiply by 100. Else, we're going to assume it is 100%. So we are going to update the UI by taking the accuracy element dot text content, which is equal to the accuracy. Now let's see. By default, we have accuracy of 100%. If I keep typing, for example, this, as you can see, the accuracy is still 100 because we are not calculating the errors here, because the accuracy depends on the errors. At the moment, we don't have the logic for calculating the errors. So let's implement that, and this is where the function to check the character comes in. So in here, we are going to determine the number of errors and also play some error sound. So here, we're going to take, and that is if the input character is not equal to what it has been displayed, and that is the target character. It means that we have an error. Therefore, we are going to increase the error as that. And then we're going to play error sound. Remember, we have the audio here as the error sound. If I click on that, as you can see, that is the error sound. So let's continue to implement that. How can we play the error sound? And here we're going to use the audio class as new audio, and then pass in the sound /error.the mp3.play. And that is it. And then we're going to return false here. Else, we're going to return true. Alright, we are done with that. So it's time for us to call this function and pass in the input character and then the target character. And then we're going to call it inside the input event handler here. But before that, let's finish up with the displaying of the message. So here I will say const message area is equal to document dot get element by ID, and the ID is called message dash area. If you check in the HTML, this is the div here. If I say some message, let's see in the HTML, which is this. But instead of hard coding, I want to make it more dynamic. So let me remove that. And then back here, let's continue. I'm going to take the message area dot text content, which is equal to the message. So it means that when we call this function, we're going to pass in the message. And then we have to clear the message after 3 seconds. And we're going to use set timeout here, pass in callback function, and then the time you want to call this, and that is 3 seconds. So in here, we're going to call the message area dot text content is equal to empty string. We are done with the displaying of the message. What has left is the logic for typing, where we're going to call these functions. So let's continue. Over here, we have to get what the user is typing. So let me show you one more time. If I type something here, this is the event that has been called. So we're going to get it from the value property on the event. So I will say const typed element is equal to typing input element dot value. If I log the value here, supposed to be the typed, no, this one, typed element. Let's see, if I say u, as you can see, we got that. So now let's also get the target one. as const target element or target text is equal to the text to type element dot text content. So here we are going to check, and that is if the current index is less than the target text dot length. If it is less than that, then we have to call the check character here, and that is this function to display the error. So in here, we're going to bring in or assign what is called is correct. And then we're going to call the check character function, which is this one. And remember, this function takes in two arguments, input and then the target. So here you're going to pass in the input one, and you're going to get it from the typed text. Well, let me change this one to typed text instead of the typed element. Yeah, to make it more descriptive. So here, bring that, and then we're going to access the current index as the current index here, comma, the target is going to be the target text, and also take the current index. Alright, we are done with that. Next step is that we have to change the color of the text as a user type. If it is correct, we're going to change to green. If it is wrong, it's going to be red. And we have the CSS by having correct and wrong over here, which is this. The correct, we're going to use green color, and incorrect, we're going to use this red color. So we're going to use JavaScript to add that. So here is going to be text to type element dot inner HTML, which is equal to this. Then we're going to take the target text dot substring. Let's begin from index 0 and then up to the current index, and then plus backtick. We're going to use span here. Make sure to avoid any white spacing. So here as span. For the opening tag for the span, we're going to pass in the class. And the class, we're going to make it more dynamic, which is equal to this. And in here, we're going to bring in the $ curly braces as that. So here, if it is correct, then we're going to add the class of correct, and that is the color of green. Otherwise, we're going to use incorrect. And then inside the span, we're going to bring in the target. Let's use $ curly braces, the target text, and then access the current index. And then after the span, we're going to add plus and then the target text dot substring. And then in here, we're going to pass in the current index plus 1. And lastly, we have to increase the current index as that. And lastly, we have to display the message by saying that text completed, starting a new one. So here as if the current index is equal to the target text dot length. It means that the user has finished typing. This is where we're going to call the display message, and by saying text completed, starting a new one. And we have to call the initialize game to update the text. Alright, we are done. So moment of truth. Let me close this and type me. And then as you can see, it has restarted. If I type something like M, as you can see, I got the error. If I type H here, correct, my accuracy is now 50, is correct, my speed is 3 WPM, and then if I type there, it has been restarted and my speed was that. All right, and then if I type this, as you can see, everything is working fine.